I didn't kill him! Well, all right, I did kill him. I didn't mean to. Not on this occasion. I admit that there have been many times in the past when I could cheerfully have pushed Jack Dunant down a mine shaft. It began with a phone call. "Freddie McQueen speaking," I announced brightly as I picked up the receiver. "Miss Bingley here," came the brittle voice on the other end. "Mr. Lamont's secretary. He's got something for you." "Oh, long time no hear from," I remarked in acid response. "And if Vernon Lamont has got something for me, why isn't he ringing me himself? He's dining with an important client." Important client? The impertinent minx! Vernon Lamont has been my agent for the past 20 years. "Well, what is it?" I demanded a tad tetchily. "It's a booking down in Hythe," she explained. "Anathema Twist's latest thriller. The Scarlet Feather. It's a smash hit." "If it's a smash hit, what's it doing in Hythe?" Vernon knows that I never work the provinces. "All right," I conceded grudgingly. "What's the part?" "It's a country house murder mystery," Miss Bingley explained. "Usual thing. The weekend guests dropping like flies. You play the host, owner of the family estate, General Sir Hilary Barton Fitch. Mr. Lamont thought it would suit you down to the ground." "I'd need to see the script." "No time. The previous Sir Hilary broke his leg falling through a trapdoor, and they need someone down there PDQ. For the last 3 nights, the ASM has been doing it, and even with a wig and a moustache, she doesn't cut the mustard." Well, the funds could certainly do with a bunk-up, so I wasted no further time, packed my bags for Hythe, and was on the first train next morning. Whilst I waited for a taxi at Hythe Station, I purchased a copy of the local newspaper from a stand on the platform. Discovered that, as luck would have it, it contained a review of The Scarlet Feather by local critic Virginia Louche. "When the curtain opens on this thrilling murder mystery," enthused Virginia, "we discover the dead body of General Sir Hilary Barton Fitch slumped over his desk with a dagger." "Hang on! General Sir Hilary? That's the part I'm playing." I found a phone box and rang Vernon instanter. "He's in a meeting," lied Miss Bingley. "Don't give me that. It's barely 10 o'clock. Go in there and tell him that Freddie McQueen demands to speak to him." A full 2 minutes later, Vernon stumbled to the phone. "What's up, old man?" "Am I to understand," I demanded, "that I have been engaged to play a corpse?" Yes. "How dare you?" "I thought it was quite a cosy number myself," Vernon opined drowsily. "No moves to remember, no bally lines to learn, and then it's off into the dressing room, feet up with a little drinky, until curtain call." Well, put like that, and it is a few weeks' regular work before it transfers to the Adelphi, I began to change my point of view. "Who else is in it?" I asked. "Anyone I know?" "Edward Blakemore is playing the butler," I groaned. "Oh, not Frosty Blakemore. He's got a glass eye. Oh, for goodness sake. He can't see you unless you're on the right of him. He played the whole of Coriolanus downstage left." And, of course, Vernon hesitated a moment. "Jack Dunant is playing the inspector." "Jack Dunant!" I hissed as the pips went. Well, I had no more change. Vernon had escaped me, the cowardly rotter. Jack Dunant has been a thorn in my flesh since we were RADA together. Well, he's no actor, really. He always gets the best part, but really he's no actor. He's just darn handsome. Modelling for the Brill Cream advert, you know, that sort of thing. He's charming, I admit, and he does insouciant terribly well. I consider returning to London without more ado, but remembering the depressed state of the funds, I gathered up my bags in shattered pride and headed off to the theatre. I was met there by the assistant stage manager, Bronwyn, a charming girl, as it turned out. "Oh, it's such a relief to see you, Mr. McQueen," she told me, taking my bags from me. "It's so good of you to come. Not at all, my dear, I told her. And you can call me Freddie. It was Bronwyn who took me through the opening scene, as neither the director nor indeed the cast thought my arrival sufficient reason to disturb their noontime slumber. Curtain up soon arrived, and there I am, slumped across the desk in the library, with a dagger sticking out between my shoulders of my velvet smoking jacket, and my head down on the blotter. Well, Frosty makes his entrance, and all goes well. Various members of the General's family and the weekend guests, they all appear, and all suspects, naturally. They're there to express their horror and dismay. Eventually, Jack Dunant arrives as the inspector and assumes control. He wanders about the stage for about 5 minutes, being insouciant, before he discovers the first clue. Now, you may have been wondering about the Scarlet Feather of the title. Well, this is it. The eponymous frond is discovered clutched in the dead General's fist, by the inspector, naturally. It is not, as you might suppose, the feather from some exotic bird of paradise. Oh, it's a dyed ostrich feather, one dropped from the boa worn by Dorothy, what's her name? She plays the General's mistress. Suspicion naturally falls on her. She breaks down under questioning and admits that she had been into the library to see Sir Hilary to put an end to their affair, but swears that he was still alive when she left him. And, well, we have to believe her, because, as suspect number one, she is of course dead before the end of the first scene, having choked on a poisoned olive in her pre-prandial martini. But I digress. Now, having prized the feather from the dead General's grasp, the inspector, after wandering the stage with it for a minute or so, puts the damn thing back down on the desk, right in front of my nose. Now, Freddie McQueen prides himself on his breath control, but during a period of 25 minutes, I defy anyone not to exhale. Flutter, flutter goes the feather, and a definite titter can be heard in the audience. That swine Dunant. I swear he did it on purpose. Of course, he apologised after the show in that sly, laughing way of his, but the damage was done by then. And there was another unfortunate occurrence before we reached the interval. I was off, dead set on hiding my shame for the rest of the evening in the dressing room, when a dear little Bronwyn asked me if I would do her a favour. It seems that just before the curtain falls at the end of Act 1, a shadowy figure is glimpsed peering through the French windows. It's just a red herring, of course. Gives the audience something more to chatter about over their gin and tonic. I should have thought they had enough to talk about, frankly, because by then the corpse count has risen alarmingly, including Sir Hilary's idiotic nephew. He stood to inherit the estate and was obviously suspect number 2, until he was found strangled with a frilly garter in the butler's pantry. And what he was doing in there was anybody's guess. Anyway, Bronwyn usually plays the shadowy figure, but that means she has to leave stage management corner and ask Louisa Thrip, who plays the Dowager Duchess, to wind the handle for the tabs. Now you might ask yourself, where is the stage crew? But there's only old Albert, apparently. He's been with the theatre for 50 years and will probably haunt the place when he's dead. I think he lives there. He's got some kind of room in the basement where he cooks kippers over a primus. Well, at the moment that the curtain requires closing, Albert is across in the other wings, ready to operate the wind machine, leaving no one to do it except Louisa. Oh, well, the poor old dear's not up to it. The curtain is dreadfully slow. Now, never let it be said that Freddie McQueen is not a trooper. I was about to offer to wind the handle when Bronwyn said no, she would rather close the tabs herself if I would go on as the shadowy figure. Won't Sir Henry be recognised? I asked. But she assured me that my identity would be concealed in a raincoat with the collar turned up, a fedora pulled down low, and the lower half of my face concealed by a muffler. So I was standing in the wings, waiting for Bronwyn to give me the thumbs up, when it occurred to me that I ought to change my trousers. After all, they were visible below the knee, and General Sir Hilary's troops were a rather alarming tweed. But no sooner had I wiggled out of them when Bronwyn was hissing at me from the wings. "You're on!" "But my trousers," I protested. "No time," she insisted, and more or less thrust me into the limelight. My appearance caused rather more speculation amongst the audience in the interval than might have been expected. The sight of my manly calves, sans culotte as it were, led to questions over gins and tonic about whether the shadowy figure glimpsed at the window as the curtain falls might have been a Scotsman. Well, the director, one Jocelyn Horsley, someone of whom I had never previously heard, was quick to express his displeasure. In the second act, some rapid extemporization was needed to explain my trouserless state. Jack Dunant, of course, could barely conceal his laughter. He went off to dinner with Horsley and at the end of the show, the lovely Lilliput, the ingenue, draped over his arm. Now, she is a dear, dear little creature, is Dilly, if you admire a certain rapid charm. But to my mind, she does not possess the winsome appeal of young Bronwyn, who confessed to me that she understudies Dilly. And actually, she went on for her in the matinee Thursday last, so that Dilly could have the afternoon off to get her corns attended to. "She'll be looking over her shoulder now," I told young Bronwyn. "You'll have to worried." "Oh, do you think so, Mr. McQueen?" she asked breathlessly. "I'm certain of it. And call me Freddie." "The problem is," she pouted adorably, "I had to kiss that odious Jack Dunant." "Don't you find him attractive?" I was slightly shocked, as all things fluttery and feminine seemed to go weak at the knees at the sight of him. "Oh, too much brill cream for me," Bronwyn riposted feistily. "I admire men who are more rugged. In fact," and she went on with what I can only describe as a significant glance in my direction, "I don't despise a man in a kilt." Well, the following evening, just before curtain, I made so bold as to present young Bronwyn with a box of mint imperials as a small token of my esteem. Now, I had specifically asked Jack Dunant to be careful where he laid that damned Scarlet Feather, and he promised that he would not put it where he had put it the night before. You know what the bounder does? Instead of laying it in front of my nose, he more or less inserts it into my right nostril. Well, I struggled for what seemed like an eternity, sweat pouring down my face, but eventually nature had to take its course. The corpse sneezed. Well, never in my entire theatrical career have I been so mortified. The feather, propelled by the mighty thrust of air, shot off and landed in the front row. And what made it worse? The author was in that night, and she was already unhappy about the shadowy figure having been turned into a Scotsman. Well, at the end of the scene, I crawled back to the dressing room, dreading my inevitable sacking at the end of the show. But young Bronwyn intercepted me. "What a rotten swine that Jack Dunant is," she said, a slight of aroma of peppermint wafting in my direction. I could see what he was doing from the wings. "I'll tell Mr. Horsley what happened." "Thank you, Bronwyn, my dear, but I fear that won't be enough." "Freddie," she went on urgently, "I was going to ask you to do me another favour. You see, I can't find Albert anywhere. He's not backstage or in his room. I think he might have slipped out for a sly pint. I don't want to get him into trouble." "Oh, noble girl," quoth I, "tell me what I can do to help." "Well, just after the beginning of the second act, there's a scenery change. The action moves from the library to Lady Barton Fitch's boudoir. We have to fly the back wall of the library out and fly the boudoir in. Albert usually does it because I'm busy getting Miss Lilliput into her quick change." "Well, consider it done," I said. Now, of course, that scenery weighs a ton, but it's all very cleverly counterweighted on pulleys and whatnots. And Bronwyn showed me the ropes. She would give me the cue, she explained, and I was to start hauling the moment the red light came on. Timing was crucial, because as the library went up, before the boudoir came down, the inspector had to pass underneath, so that when the lights came on, he was found standing by her ladyship's bedside. The vital thing was to remember to put the brake on as soon as the library had ascended to its maximum extent. Well, there I was, poised in the wings, my hands ready on the rope. The red light came on, and I gave a manly heave, the back wall of the library flying up as if by magic. Then I heard a terrible whooping from the stage management corner. Craning my neck, I glimpsed poor Bronwyn choking. A Mint Imperial had gone down the wrong way. With no other thought in my mind but to fly to her immediate rescue, I leapt into action, abandoning my post to thump her ruggedly between the shoulder blades. It was only as the offending Mint Imperial popped into view that I heard the dreadful rumbling of descending scenery and realized that I had omitted to secure the brake. Down came the library wall and struck Jack Dunant a deadly blow on the fedora. Killed him, poor fella. We had to stop the show, bring down the curtain, and to give the audience their money back. Fortunately, the police treated the tragedy as a horrible accident. I was completely exonerated by Bronwyn's robust defence of my actions, and even Albert only got a mild ticking off. Apparently, he'd nipped into Louisa's dressing room to give her a tip on a dead cert in the 3:30 at Haydock. Well, she wasn't there, so he decided to wait and had fallen asleep on a chair behind the dressing room door. Of course, this left the company with a slight problem of who was going to play the inspector for the rest of the run. Oh, and indeed, a new ingenue would also be needed, as young Dilly Lilliput was so overcome by Jack's demise that she gave up the theatre and went home to help her mother run a guest house in Broadstairs. It was decided, after some endorsement by yours truly, that a new ASM should be searched for, and young Bronwyn given her chance. As for the inspector, it was decided that the role needed someone a little less insouciant, a little more rugged. Never let it be said that Freddie McQueeg didn't rise to a challenge.